We all know by now when you click on this video what I'm going to be doing. So let's just get into it and let's not act like this is our first rodeo. As I try to organize the order in which I read these books, because for some reason I'm just a stickler on talking about them in order, I do want to say that so many, and I mean so many videos this month absolutely like went down the drain. Like I fully filmed so many different like themed videos and everything, like as I'm looking back at some of these reads, and I'm like, yeah, wow, that just really did not work out, did it? Something that I've been saying recently is that's life, and that's just what's happening. Okay, I think these are all in order. So, oh yeah, so I put them all. Okay, welcome back to another reading wrap up, everybody. So of course I'm going to start off with the statistics, and I did this last month where I introduced, oh my god, we're literally 3 months into the year, but I've only done this 2 times this year. Why do I feel like I've actually already done it 12 times? Okay, so last month I kind of introduced how I wanted to start doing like the statistics at the beginning, and you guys actually really liked that, so I'm going to do that again this month, but I added in the page count because a lot of you guys said that you would be interested in seeing the page count. Now I want to say before I put the page count on the screen and stuff that I just look up how many pages each of these books are. So here are the reading statistics for February. So I read 10 books this month, which summed to 4,295 pages. Average rating this month was a 3.1 star. I think last month it was like a 3.4 or something like that, so we have dropped down and it is a 3.1. Genre breakdown, I read 5 romances, 2 young adult books, 1 thriller, 1 literary fiction, and 1 cozy mystery book. We had a very romance heavy month, which I feel like is kind of, you know, like February I feel like is a romance heavy month for a lot of readers because it is the month of Valentine's Day, so I feel like we all get in like our little cozy romance moods. But honestly, it was mostly because this month one of the main videos that I put out was reading new releases, and a lot of new releases that came out that were on my anticipated list were romances. So let's get into those. Well, we're not getting into them right now. I'm starting off with, I think I finished this like I finished it on like the first day of February after it was my goal to finish. I have the rest of the Eden series off camera. I'm too lazy to even just like pick it up and show you, but I wanted to finish the Eden series last month. I didn't finish this book in time. This is the very last book in the Eden series, Sable Peak. This is the one that I think a lot of people were waiting for because the guy in this book is somebody that I guess everybody had been really like waiting for, and he was like fine. He was fine. Honestly, this is my favorite book out of the Edens, but I think I ended up rating this one a 3 stars as well. Like I think every single book in the Eden series got a 3 stars from me, and I did describe them as like they aren't bad books. They're just books that are like 0 brain power for me. If you just want like a book that is 0 brain power, want to pick up like a light fast read, I would definitely recommend this series because I mean they're not super long either, and I feel like you can get through them pretty quickly if you're just like wanting a page turning book. I heard that Daphne Perry does this with all of her books, but it is a romance book with like a subplot of a mystery going on with one of the characters, usually like something to unravel and like something else to focus on other than the romance, but both plots are very heavy. I would say it's pretty much 50-50, and with this one it was just a little cringy to me. There were a lot of like cringe-worthy moments that were happening to me, and I was just like, oh, this is really hard to get past. Other than that, I really do enjoy the Eden series. It is a 3-star series, but I just find them entertaining. If you're just wanting to pick up a quick, easy, fun, entertaining read, I would recommend the Eden series. Next up, I read Finley Donovan is Killing It. If you guys have books sitting on your TBR that have been sitting on your TBR for like a long time, I'm talking about maybe over 6 months to a year or even longer than that in some cases, and then when you finally pick it up and read it, you feel even more accomplished than you do just reading a book, period. Because after you read a book, you do kind of feel on top of the world. Like even if you didn't like it, you're like, oh, but I read a book. But when you read a book that's been sitting on your physical TBR for such a long time, you feel better. You just feel a little bit more up here. That's how I feel. And honestly, this was one of those books that I had looked at, and I don't know why, just every time I looked at it, I was just so uninterested in reading it. But I actually was reading this for a video that ended up not working out. This is the cozy mystery that I read this month. This book and Dial A for Aunties are like those cozy mysteries, but they just look like this. But a cozy mystery is like if you go into like a bookstore and you see like the little tiny books that usually have like a cat on the cover or something, and it's like murder at a bookstore. Those are like cozy mysteries. This is one of those, and I just really liked them. Like even the romance little subplots like that were very light that were going on, I was like giggling and kicking my feet. I was like, wait, why is this like like you just don't expect in these cozy mysteries to like really care about the romance because that's not what you're there for. Also like the banter between two unlikely characters, like the two characters that end up being like very important to each other in the story, I was like, okay, this is like, I love this. I love this little thing that we got going on here. And then the way that this book ends off sets up perfectly for another book to like follow along with her in its unlikely circumstances. And it's very funny. Like the thing about Cozy Mysteries too is that I recommend them for you guys if you can't do thrillers, like if you're somebody who can't do a thriller, but you like that kind of, you know, ooh, whodunit type of vibe. Cozy Mysteries are definitely the way to go. And I feel like there's a lot of them modern day that are like this that are really good. So are following, you guessed it, Finley Donovan, and she is a mom. She's kind of in a struggling moment in her life, and she is trying to write novels, and she's meeting with her editor, publisher, and agent, one of those three. Basically, they're talking about like the plot for her book, and a woman overhears her and thinks that they are talking about like real life. So the woman essentially is like offering her payment if she can her ex-husband or her husband, and she's like, no, you got it all wrong. And then you're just kind of following that storyline, and it is just, it's twisty, it's turny, it's so much fun, and it was so entertaining, and I ended up giving it a 4 stars. Next up is another book that I've had sitting on my TBR for at least a year now, feeling very accomplished, which is The No-Show by Beth O'Leary. This is one of those books that I feel like I always would talk about, like if you saw me talk about my physical TBR or a TBR, where I feel like I've included this in so many TBRs. I was always so very intrigued by it because I also heard like there's just stuff in it that makes you very emotional. Basically just about a guy who stands up 3 different women on Valentine's Day, and you're like, how am I going to care about that? You do. And let me tell you, it really caught me off guard. The thing is though, is that when you were introduced to the storyline, like you do fall for the guy because he is just very sweet and caring, compassionate. He's a great guy. But there's always something in the back of your head being like, ugh, but I know that he stood these girls up and there's 3 different women and I can't trust him. So I feel like it was hard to kind of grab that really emotional connection with him as a character. And I feel like he was such an important character to learn and understand. And it was just such a heartwarming, heart-wrenching time. And honestly, Beth O'Leary, I technically classified this as a romance because her books are always sitting in the romance section, but every single time I have picked up a book by her, it reads more like a women's fiction. I say the same thing about Emily Henry, that I feel like her books are more like women's fiction than romance, and I feel the same way about Beth O'Leary, but it was just so good. If you haven't read it, I really recommend reading it. This is where, for pretty much majority of the books except for the last one, I read in this reading vlog, where I read a bunch of anticipated new releases, because a bunch of my anticipated releases for the year came out in like January, February time. So first of all, I feel like one of the most anticipated, if you are into like romance, this is the last book in the Magnolia Parks part of the Magnolia Parks series. This is where things get a little bit confusing. If you don't know, here's Magnolia Parks series. My coffee is covering it up. I'm so sorry. So you'll see these are Magnolia Parks books, and then we have Daisy Hates books, but they're all under the umbrella of Magnolia Parks. We have no more Magnolia Parks books, but we will continue to have Daisy Hates books. This was the last Magnolia Parks book, and let me just tell you guys that I have always said that I just enjoy the Daisy Hates books more. I feel like I just like those characters more. One in specific, I just kind of enjoy more of that storyline that they follow more. It's a little bit more entertaining plot-wise for me. I also say that with this series, if you don't like character study, for example, I always say that Boys of Tommen, you guys can't really see, but Addicted Callaway is up here. Those series are literally just character studies. There is no plot to them. You are just following these people in their lives. Like, there is not a plot line happening. It's just like you are just watching these people live life. It is the same exact thing with the Magnolia Parks series, but with Daisy Hates, there's a little bit more of a plot going on. With Magnolia Parks, I didn't love the characters, like POV that we were in. I didn't love either of them, so they were never like my favorite. And then we got this book, and let me just tell you guys that the character growth and development for one character in specifics that I just kind of always said I didn't like. I didn't enjoy him particularly at all, and he's a very big part to the story. Oh, hi. Hi, girl. Hey, girl. Oh, bless. 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 Oh, get on it. Get on it. Get on it. All right. My girly. Okay, anyway. So, I never really liked him, but the character growth and development in this story, it was so good. The storyline was also just so much more like emotional, in an emotional depth to it. I'm going to put up some trigger warnings that this book has right here because I do feel like there are heavy mentions of quite a few things in here that can be very triggering. One of them in specifics very much triggered me while I was reading the book, so I'm just going to put them up here, that way you guys are just in the know. It was just honestly a beautiful story. The way it wrapped up these two characters I thought was very endearing and sweet. I feel like it wrapped up so many things in the story very well and kind of put a bow on it in a way that feels like a finality, but also you will still see parts of them through the Daisy Hates books because they are still like a part of the inner friend group. It's kind of like with the Addicted Calloway Sister series, how even if you were in the Calloway books, you still saw Lily and Lo. 4.5 stars. I can't say a whole lot about this book because, again, you are literally smack dab in the middle of a series, so there's not a whole lot to say plot-wise about it. I want to say if you're wanting to get into the Magnolia Park series, I would just go ahead and put it out to you guys that it's not a healthy relationship. They're very toxic with each other, and it's just kind of entertaining. This was a very random, kind of really anticipated release for me. Do I think it's because of the cover? Absolutely. I literally think that this is one of my favorite covers ever. Like, I just love the blocking and the colors. Like, I could go on and on about the cover. The story itself, not really. Not my favorite. It's basically about a breakup, but from a man's POV, which I thought was a little interesting because most of the time when I pick up a book and you kind of are reading about a literary fiction and it's kind of following a breakup and self-discovery and self-reflection because of a breakup, you're usually reading it from a woman's perspective, and it was kind of different to sit and read about how a man could take a breakup. I listened to this one via audiobook and I really enjoyed it. Again, 3 stars. Other than telling you guys about this book right now, I never think about it, and the only time I think about this book is because I really like the cover. Alright, next up we have The Fury. Now, if you guys are a frequent watcher of my channel, you guys would know I have read quite a few thrillers. I will read a thriller. I am very harsh on thrillers because I feel like I have read so many of them in my lifetime. Thrillers used to be like my absolute favorite thing to read. This author is the same author of The Silent Patient and The Maidens, and this is his 3rd book that he released, so I was pretty excited about it because both of his thrillers I really enjoyed. I feel like they were able to catch me off guard, especially The Silent Patient. When I read that for the first time, I was in high school, and I remember listening to the audiobook and just being like in art class when some stuff started getting revealed. Like, I will never forget the feeling of reading The Silent Patient. So he's pretty much engraved in my brain as a thriller author, and I really enjoy thrillers, so I was very pumped up for this one. All I knew going into it was that it took place at an island in Greece, and I didn't know much else about it, and I kind of want you guys to go in with the same type of knowledge of not knowing a whole lot, because I feel like sometimes with thrillers it's better to go in not really knowing anything. I definitely could guess where we were going 100% because in a way it feels like a reused thing that he has already done, and I kind of started feeling that a little bit, so it definitely did not catch me off guard, and I feel like everything was pretty blaringly obvious as I was going through it, but I really enjoyed the narrative in which we were in and the way that the narrative was written. I thought that that was unique, and I really liked it, and I mean, it was entertaining. I had a good time. I ended up giving it a 3 star because, again, I didn't guess it, and I feel like that always does really go into the rating for me, because if you're reading a thriller, you are reading it because you want to be entertained, you want it to be fast-paced, but you also want to be caught off guard, because I feel like that's the whole point of a thriller, is like, yeah, I want to see if I can figure it out, but I want to be caught off guard, and it just wasn't that for me. But the writing was good, and I really liked, like I said, the narrative and how it was set up, so it ended up getting a 3 stars from me. I don't want to look at anything else now that I saw you. Okay, funny that I started singing Taylor Swift because we have the breakup tour, and the reason I say that is because I remember the way that this was like put out as a like advertising device, marketing device. That's what I'm looking for. Thank you. Let my brain work a little bit. Sometimes it takes a while. They were definitely using Taylor Swift and saying it was very Swiftie coded. I feel like to get Swifties to read the book, and it worked because look at me. Because literally on the back it says a rising star musician has a second chance at love with an old flame she remembers all too well in this swoony romance. And I ended up giving this a 2 stars. So I didn't love this because I just felt like the 2 main characters did not belong together. You do not belong with me. And I feel like there was absolutely 0 chemistry. I feel like the girl in this book was forcing a life on the guy that he didn't really want, and he was very uncomfortable with, and like verbally was very uncomfortable with it. Kind of felt like everything was for show in a way, and they just kept going along with it. And I feel like both of them at very many times were kind of acknowledging how they probably very blaringly obviously do not work together, but they were just like, we'll ignore it because we were in love a few years ago. Like, that's what it felt like. Felt no chemistry. The timeline of this book as well, like, it is a short book, but it felt so long because we spent so much time on stage rehearsals and this and that, and now I was like, okay, what does this have to do with the book? So basically this story is about a rising pop star, and she puts out an album, and basically the whole entire album is about, like, each song is dedicated to an ex, and she just recently got divorced, and the song that she wrote for, like, her ex back in college, who is the romance with the guy in this book, her recent ex-husband basically claims that the song is about him. It goes viral on social media, but it's really about her ex from college, so she basically goes to meet back up with him and asks him if he wants to go on tour with her. And so yeah, we're kind of ending off the month on a bad note, and I did kind of go into a book slump after this video was finished. Yeah, didn't read anything for a while after these books. Next up we had If Only I Had Told Her, which is kind of like a continuation, but it's really just like different point of views of If He Had Been With Me, and kind of it takes place a little bit after getting a point of view that you really wanted in the first book that you didn't get. And I do feel like, though, like, I did not know that this book was multiple point of views. That may be just a lack of research on my part, because I guess you should never assume. This is your thing, that you should never make assumptions, because I assumed that it just had one point of view, the one point of view that we wanted from If He Had Been With Me, and I thought that that's what we were getting, was the whole entire book from that point of view. We barely spent any time in that point of view, and then we got two other point of views that I felt like, in my opinion, were absolutely useless. I rated this a 2 stars, is because I feel like it was built upon hype of being like, you were gonna get this whole entire book in this point of view, like, that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get a lot of information that you didn't get the first time, and kind of background info, and then you just quite literally did it. You barely spent any time in the point of view that everybody wanted in the first place. And I understand that as an author that could be very emotionally taxing to be in that point of view, and I understand that. I feel like also the purpose of everybody wanting a different point of view was to kind of learn, like, the backstory. It's like how you always, like, when you're reading a romance and you want the guy's point of view, like, because you want to see what he was thinking while the girl was falling in love with him, like, you know, like, sometimes we like seeing that. And then when we're in this person's point of view, it almost was like, this kind of almost ruins If He Had Been With Me and stuff that I had already known, because in this person's point of view, it seems like none of the other stuff was real from the other book. Yeah, 2 stars, didn't love it. Next up, why did I just, like, I read Bride. And I will preface this because on my Goodreads, my review for this was that I rated it at 2 stars, and I said I am now traumatized by the word not. And a lot of the comments, the last time I checked, was like, oh, you've never read the Omegaverse. No, I haven't. And I think reading this book just made me realize that it is personally not for me. We went into graphic detail about that, and it perplexed me and was so off-putting to me, for me personally. I feel like if you watched that reading vlog, you could see just my energy was just a little like afterwards. And also just like the romance in this book was so weird, because I feel like we focused a lot more on the politics and then the side plot. We did not focus on the romance quite literally at all. Like, I don't even think the 2 main love interests like really interacted whatsoever. Like, you would kind of get hints of it, and then all of a sudden it was like, boom, we're here. Boom, we've arrived at the romance, and then back to the politics and plot. And then you just get a whole lot of that situation at the end, and then the book ends. Then I ended off the month reading Legendborn, which this was actually my book club's book pick of the month. And if you guys are not already, you guys, my Discord is always linked down below. It is called We Read That. It is my book club that I have over on Discord. I actually made it like 2 years ago. Wow, I can't believe that was 2 years ago. Basically, it is just a community for you guys to go into, pick a book each month. I do 4 books, and I make a little poll, and you guys choose which book you want to read. And then we have little channels and everything that you guys can talk through. My mods have made my Discord what it is, and they run the Discord. They're absolutely amazing. I always grew up never having anybody to talk to books about until I started my YouTube channel. So if you want to talk about books with people, there's so many people in the Discord that you can chat with, and it's such an amazing community that I want you guys to be a part of. So you guys, it's always down in the description below. And this was this month's book pick. And so this is another book that has been sitting on my TBR, and I actually DNF'd this book last year, but it wasn't like a I don't like it DNF. I had just finished reading Kingdom of Ash and then decided, oh yeah, because I was reading like 7 fantasy books in 7 days is what I was trying to do. Finished the Throne of Glass series and thought that I was going to do anything with my reading life after that. I DNF'd it, but I was like, you know what, I'll come back at one time. Here we are. I ended up giving this one a 3.5 stars. This is a young adult fantasy novel. I really though do enjoy how different the world felt because it is like the King Arthur lore is what this fantasy world and magic system is built upon, and I know nothing about King Arthur. You know, you pick up any other like even young adult fantasy or fantasy and it can either feel like a specific dystopian world or a specific fantasy world that you do kind of feel like has kind of been done before but you like the stories. This one just felt so unique to me because of the world that it was in. It actually takes place at like UNC college, so you're taking place like in the real world, but there's this like secret society and it's basically like magic from King Arthur and the knights, and I just thought that that was so unique and I really liked it. I also really liked this author's writing. There's so much representation within this book as well, which I would really recommend for you guys to pick it up because I feel like also there are so many important things that are so real on top of this fantasy world discussed in this book. I just really enjoyed it. I feel like I really enjoyed the characters and the romance subplot in this. It was a 3.5 though because I feel like there was so much info dumping. On one hand, it's like I definitely needed that because I know nothing about King Arthur, but then on the other hand of it, it's like I just personally do not enjoy info dumping whatsoever. It kind of makes my brain just like do like white noise. Like I just cannot focus on it because I feel like I'm reading a textbook. Like at the very beginning of the book it did it, all throughout the book it did it, and I feel like that honestly just really took me out of it at some points and made the book a little bit hard for me to get through. When we weren't info dumping, it was so interesting, and the characters, the main characters, the side characters, everything I feel like was so well done, and I feel like how everything was woven through the story was executed very well. I loved like the little twists and turns that we were going down, and it was so good, and I would really recommend you guys pick this up. 3.5 stars, really enjoyed it. I do want to read the second book. I do feel like I could potentially rate that book higher just because we have established the world, the magic, the characters, and obviously everything sometimes gets better after the first book. Those are all of my thoughts on the books that I read this month. I feel like rating wise it wasn't the best month. I feel like I was disappointed with a lot of the books that I read. If you guys haven't watched my March TBR, go watch it because I feel like I kind of got off really good on my March TBR. Didn't read literally I think a single book off of my February TBR last month, but my March TBR is very promising for me because I feel like it's kind of a mood reading month for me. Weather's getting a little bit warmer. I feel like I'm starting to get into some reading again. I feel like in February I kind of fell off my reading game, but we are back, ladies and gentlemen. We are so back. We are so back. Okay. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you guys did, you guys know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff you guys know how to do. And I will see you guys when I see ya. Peace.